Like I said, once again, our focus of this Voice of Freedom show in our segment, B2B, which is Black to Black, I want to talk about the actual numbers around black owned and black owned business. So let's split the screen and let's start on something here. All right, there we go. I always like to start with this. Um, I usually start here always talking about basically how people spend their money. We're going to come back to this chart. Let's start here instead. Now, this organization is the Minority Business Development Agency. The Minority Business Development Agency is the part of the U.S. Commerce or U.S. Commerce, the U.S. Commerce, Department of U.S. Commerce, that actually handles minority businesses and helping minorities do it. Now, first of all, let me clarify: minority business don't mean always black owned. Minority means black, Hispanic, Asian, women owned companies, and those women owned companies don't have to fall in those other groups of minorities, right? So basically, this here is the source, and they grab their information. They have the access to grab the information from the U.S. Census Bureau, from other spaces. The core and the heart of a lot of this information is going to come from the U.S. Census Bureau. And in particular, the majority of the information comes from what's called the ABS. And I want you to just familiarize yourself with what the ABS is. The ABS is the Annual Business Survey. And what you'll find out about the Annual Business Survey, and I'm gonna jump and just show you the about information really quick, because whenever you look at survey information, you look at data, and don't go to sleep on this, right? I know when we start talking numbers and stuff, we like to go to sleep, but we talk a lot and we build a lot and we do a lot, but we need to actually do it according to that. I forgot, I had to call the VPN for here. I'm out of our office here. But either way, where does this data come from? This is what it looks like. This is the ABS data. What they do is they take your corporate tax return. And when you file your tax return, they take a subsampling of, let's just say, like 20%, 25% of all those returns, and you'll be flagged immediately and asked to fill out the survey as a part of your form. Now, when you fill out the survey, it's almost mandated to you, so almost everybody fills it out. You just opt in information, am I black owned, whatever. So these are not black owned certified companies. These are not companies that have gone through any process. These are just people who have opted in on their own and said, I'm black owned. Number of firms, meaning the number of companies that we're talking about, are going to be relevant because this is everyone who had to file taxes. And we ain't talking about nobody else at this point because, quite frankly, if you're not paying taxes, you're doing something that's a little, and I don't want to deal with it right now. So we're going to talk about those folks who are out there paying taxes. That's got to be 98% of us. Okay? I said 98, not 99. Another topic. So let's look at African American firms. And the question is, out of all of the minority owned firms that you have out there, this is the list. These are minority owned firms, number of firms, 9.7 million minority owned companies, 21 million companies in the United States. All right, let's say it again. 21 million companies in the United States, 9 million minority owned, 3.2 million African American owned companies, black owned companies. Okay? Now, if I looked at this and I looked at a kind of variable based perspective, and I said, okay, I've got four, let's just assume that the numbers are right. 48, I think it's more like 60, but say 48 million black people in the United States, African American, black American people, so-called black American people. 340 million Americans. That would mean that black Americans somehow only make up 12% of the society. Now, I don't believe that, but we are going to run the numbers as they are. 12% of Americans, black American. Now, it's not just to know, I'm in a country here where there's a population of 18 million people. So we should know that African Americans are 3 times the size of the country that I'm in right now. It's whole country. So when you talk about 48 million people, we shouldn't talk about it in perspective. That's a lot of people. But let's assume that they're 12%. And if I told you there was 21 million firms and 3 million were black owned, 3 million out of 21 million were black owned, you would say that's a decent accomplishment. If we do the numbers and we look at it, it means that 13 to 15% of all of the firms in the country are black owned. And that's favorable. Now, I want you to stick with me. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to break the numbers down. I'm going to give them to you. But when I get to the end of this and you see the true numbers, I'm telling you, is you're going to take a double take and you're going to be like, can that even be real? And I'm going to tell you yes. But we're going to get into it now. So you at first would say everything is okay. We ain't got nothing to complain about. There's 12, 13, 14% of the companies are black owned, and that's our equal representation in society. Why are we complaining? Well, let's scroll down the list a little bit. Let's get over here to right here where it says gross receipts of firms. Now, gross receipts of firms, that's what 1,000 at the end, so that's 128 billion. Out of those 3 million firms, they're making $128 billion. And you say, that's big time. The total firms, non-minority, so this doesn't say total, non-minority firms, 12 trillion. Now it gets a little funky because 10% of 12 trillion is a trillion. But we're not even making 10%. We're making 1%. Oh, things kind of went to hell at that moment. 1%. So those 13% of firms are making 1% of the money. That's a whole lot of people working. That's a whole lot of folks going to work and starting a business and working their tail off. You most likely are one of them. Let me show you something in comparison. Let's flip over a little bit and look at the rest of that minority piece, because the minority piece is 1.4 trillion. And even though that's not representative, half the firms, 9 million firms compared to 21 million firms, or even a third of the firms, which it actually represents, that's still not representative because that should be 3 trillion. It's half of it, okay? But let's look over at Asian Americans. Now, these are Asian American firms, and I'm not trying to create any bias. These are numbers. They're not put out by me. These numbers are put out by the U.S. government and the U.S. Census. So we're just going to read them. There are 2.6 million Asian American firms compared to the 3 million Black American firms. But of those 2.6 million, they make $863 billion. Whereas ours make 128. We have 150% more firms than Asian American minorities. We make 13% of what they make. Let it sink in a little bit. These are hardcore facts. These are real numbers. The source is, scroll up, the Minority Business Development Agency. However, their core numbers are coming from the ABS. Okay, you can read down to here, U.S. Census Bureau population, and it gives you the numbers, AO1, ADO1, non-employer, and employer. Okay, we look at the actual statistics that are driving these numbers. So these are numbers that are solidified. The subset of businesses, out of 21 million businesses, they survey a little over 1 million of them. So this is a good subset, good survey, good data. You can't argue with this. This is what it is. Now I've given you the black to white comparison. Asian American, we see a humongous problem that 13% of the firms are making 1% of the money. And they're curved specifically around black-owned companies. Now we look at the numbers for Asian Americans, 2.6 million compared to 21 million. Total number of firms, 30 million. That's 21 plus 9. So total number of firms, 30 million firms, 31 million firms. 2.6 million out of 30 million is less than 10%. It's like 8%, something along the line 7%. Okay? Gross receipts of $863 billion falls right around 5%. So Asian Americans are getting an equal cut of the money compared to the amount of firms that they have in the US. But black-owned firms are getting 10 times less than what they should be earning in accordance to their population size and the size of firms. 10 times. That's just the start. Now, if you really want to get into this, here's where I think it gets really interesting. You need to ask yourself, how is this money split? Where are they making their money? We hear these videos. I came across this awesome video, right? I can share this video with you. All right. We're not going to go look at a lot of it, you know. But there's the title. DW is a German news company that came to the U.S. and shot this film. Now, when DW shot this piece, they put some of our good brothers in here from We Buy Black. They start out with a black billionaire, and they used this topic that came out from Forbes magazine, that there were 1.5 million black millionaires. And there were 1.5 million black millionaires. Now, we just looked at the company piece, and we saw that as entrepreneurs, I'm going to whip out a calculator. You won't be able to see the calculator. I'm going to do it just in order to grab the numbers really quick, right? If we have a total of 100, let's say 120, we said 128 billion, 2323, receipts, 123. Okay, that's the money that's revenue, right? Revenue. We're not even going to get into profit margins because the average profit margin of a black-owned company is actually just 15 to 20%. So really, it's a lot. We'll get into that a little bit later. All right, but let's divide this 128 billion by 1.5 million. That's $85,000. Okay, so all this money is not coming from the entrepreneurial space. If we have to really quantify how are there 1.5 million black millionaires, that is not liquid. It's not liquid. It means they're counting your car and your house. So even if you only put down $40,000 or 60 grand on your house, but your house is worth $600,000, they're counting that as a black millionaire. You got to ask yourself a real serious question. Why in the hell would anybody try to tell us that we're doing better than we're doing? It's because they don't want you to solve the problem. And who is they? Very specifically, they are the same people creating not the numbers in their raw data, but those who are compiling those information and then putting it out as news to you. You can quantify the thing. It's not like a scary set of people sitting up somewhere. Quantify it. Go and find a number like this from Forbes. Roll back. Look at the author. Look at who wrote the data. Look at who wrote the paper. And you say they is him. You don't, it's not like I'm not conspiracy theory in this whole thing, man. These numbers, these words come from somewhere. And in this case, those days are very clear as to who they are. Let's move on. This is great. Peace. It makes me feel excited. As a matter of fact, when I saw it, I was excited. I could run a little bit.
Why? Because his bank, one of the country's largest, is owned by a white man. And Sharif Abdul Malik is not alone. Killer Mike, the famous rapper,
when we see Killer Mike start a bank, we say, woo, we're doing great. That's a whole nother issue. I'm not even gonna get into that right now. That's that. I won't get into the fact that they don't own the bank. I'm not even gonna get into that. Did I say that? Did I say Killer Mike? Killer Mike, brother, God bless you for your efforts. But we're putting all of our money in a white bank because that's white-owned bank that actually backs them up.
Some
Right?
entrepreneurs are establishing businesses to support black communities.
To turn the table and say no.
That's our brother Sharif. We love Sharif. Sharif has done an excellent job doing We Buy Black. I'm not going to get too far in this video. I just want to show you this out there. It's on YouTube. I gave you the name of it. It's right down here at the bottom. It's America's Black Upper Class. It'll make you excited. If you watch it, it'll just get you amped. Okay? It'll get you amped. And for all those who asked me the question, look, I want you to make sure you understand that I'm not knocking Greenwood. Okay? I really want you to know that I'm not knocking Greenwood Bank, but I'm being blocked from outside of the country. I don't want to throw my VPN. But what all you need to do, though, is go on Greenwood Bank, and then once you go on Greenwood Bank, scroll down to the bottom. All the way to the bottom. When you scroll down to the bottom and you look, they will show you the real bank that has your money and that is authorized to make lending and loans through that money. That's all I'm telling you, okay? Take a look at it, understand it. It is not a black-owned bank. It is a black-owned piece of technology that is feeding money into a white bank. And I'm not knocking them, okay? But I do believe we have to be ridiculously honest with each other because we need to understand what's really wrong so that we focus our energy on fixing the right things. If you don't, then you're just running around in circles. You're swearing that things are good when they're not. And that's ridiculous. It's a placebo effect. It's just telling you things are okay so that you will then think you're okay. The next brother like myself that walks up and tells you, hey, let's build a black-owned town. Hey, let's build a black-owned economy. Hey, let's do this next. You say, oh, we don't need that, brother. We're doing just fine. We're not. And I'm about to show you exactly what it really looks like. And I want you to use these numbers, right? I'm coming from the data analyst, data programming side, and we're going to look at the data analyst side of it, okay? So let's jump. Let's go from here. This is how we look at the information that comes from the ABS, right? And it's pretty cool. I mean, they give you the ability to do a lot of filters of the data, a lot of information. This is the U.S. Census tool. They've done a lot of work on it because I've been pulling U.S. Census data for 2 decades now. And I'm telling you that they've done a lot of work with these tools online. It's a shame if we don't use them. These reports are just summaries of the data that comes from that data that's there. So I want to roll in and I want to take a look at how we're making this money. I want to take a look at what our firms look like. If we have 3 million firms, but somehow we're only making, with 13% of the companies, we're only making 1% of money, why? What's going on? You got to look at the data, right? Now I'm going to jump from here. Let's go out of here. Let's go out of this data. And I exported all this data into Excel. And I did that so I could write a pivot chart. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with pivot charts. It's probably one of the most awesome things in the world is working with a pivot chart. But let me introduce it to you if you're not by any chance. A pivot chart lets us take the data from here, right? So I ran the data by state. And I separated out the 2 different reports that had employee firms and non-employee firms. And then I specified that one was employee, non-employee. I won't get into the whole data thing, but either way, we're crunching the data. Then we did a pivot chart based on state, and we ran this number. Before I get into the state level detail, I have some US level detail. Now, everyone, excuse me, in this list is pre-set up in order that what we did is we kind of pre-looked at anyone making over $100,000. Why? Because if you are a business, black owned, and your average profit margin is 15 to 20%, if you are making $100,000, you're only making $20,000, which means this is not your main job. Okay? Not at all. If you make it under $100,000, it absolutely is not your main job. You're driving revenue and sales, but you are not feeding your kids off of this. It might buy that, trip to St. Lucia's or something like that, but it ain't your life. It ain't your livelihood. So let's go in here. I've got the sales here. You can see it. Okay, I've got 100 to 250. You can scroll over and look at it. 100 to 250,000, 250 to 500,000. Even I put the 50,000 in here. I'm gonna let's throw them in right now. So let's look at all of the firms across the United States, and let's go ahead and reduce this and show across all of what they call NAICS codes. So NAICS codes, of course, are the codes from the U.S. government. All of us that file taxes, we know what they are. At some point, we have to say what kind of business we have, and we fall in there. It's a code that will say like 42, blah, blah, 1, blah, blah, 8, 7, like this, right? But the first part of the code will tell you if you're in like wholesale, retail, manufacturing, or service-oriented business or otherwise. When we run those in the NAICS codes, and I can add them to them if you want to see them. I can always just throw it in like that. Those are actual codes. I'm going to pull them out because they just make the data look confusing. All right. So the NAICS codes, we see something really interesting. Now I've sorted this by number of firms. Now remember, I've got $50,000 all the way up to $1 million. And at what point do our companies start becoming serious? At $250,000, your take home is 50 grand. Now at that point, you can be serious about your business. That will not buy you a really nice house. If you see a person living in a very nice home and run a $250,000 business, 9 times out of 10 they have a side job or a spouse that's working or doing something else. Or their job is their main job and this is the side. This is the truth. So you got a lot of businesses out there, but you can't actually have that. And when you and Cecil Karima, you're live with me, we're recording this, but we're here and you can say, I'm telling you, you'll find yourself in this. And you'll see yourself in it. The numbers will tell you that you're in these numbers. You're one of them. So if you're at that level, let's think of the level that the business gets to the point where it can pay your salary. Now, one thing I'll do is just go ahead and go over that 250. So we got 412,000. So we know that this is representative of 1/6, which is 17% of all of the black-owned businesses in the country. Did you get it? Hold on. Listen to what I just said. I want you to hear me. Hear me thoroughly what I just said. 412,000 out of 3.2 million are making over 50 grand. So when you wonder why in the world 13% make less, it's because we are quick to register a company. We are quick to try to be an entrepreneur. But 2.7 million, 83% of our firms will never make over 50 grand in revenue. And at that other rate, will never see more than $10,000 to $15,000 out of your pocket. Now listen, if you're listening to this, and you listen to all them gurus and stuff tell you about starting businesses, and you wonder how are they filling up all them seats in all them auditoriums, they filling up with all of these brothers and sisters that are hacking at the bit, but ain't added nothing more than $10,000, $15,000 to their bottom line with their business and just want to find a way to scale up. And it's noble to try to teach them to scale, but this is our reality. Okay? Now what we're going to do is go up to the size of a business where a person can actually be in this business. They can be there and quit their job. That's a minimum of 250. So we got to get rid of 50 to 100 and 100 to 250. Watch this number. You see that? We went from 412,000 to 97. 97,000 black-owned firms in the whole country of 40 million people and 3.2 million businesses are able to say, I work my business and that's what I do. And I know a lot of people in this space and they still work their job because most of us can't live off 50 grand. 250 is 50 grand. Let's isolate that number real quick. Let's see what happens if we take away the $1 million guys and the $500,000 guys. Oh, did you notice it? Did you see it? It's more than half. 91 million, that's more than half. 46,000 are living at just 50 to 100 grand maximum off of running a business with receipts up to almost $500,000. Just Grim, you hear me? Now I'm laying this foundation for you. I just want you to have the numbers. I don't want to sell you nothing today. You know what I'm about. You know what we do. As far as Freedom Nation, if you don't, there's tons of information out there about us. Find out. Just watch the other things that we got here. I just want to give you power by letting you know exactly where we stand. Because a lot of us don't understand that there's a problem. We have a huge scaling problem. Humongous. We say it's a funding problem. That's possible. We have a scaling problem. We are unable to scale our businesses. And our margins are horrible. So even when we make a little money, we can barely sustain ourselves. And we don't have enough money to invest in ourselves because we can't drive it out of here. And quite frankly, that's a whole other thing, but we're living all beyond our means. We are. Very much so. We can barely move. So let's go back in here. Let's add the $1 million firms. Matter of fact, let me isolate that for you, just so you can see that. Those are the firms making over $1 million. 25,000. 25,000. You think that's something, don't you? I'm about to show you something very, very interesting. Look up and see what we're looking at. We're looking at healthcare, retail, professional, and scientific. So let's take away the brothers who actually have the IT companies. I mean, that's how I made my money. But the only thing about an IT company, I don't eat IT. So now I'm going to switch the conversation a little bit and think about buy black. Now, let's stop. I'm going to flip it over really quick so you can get some foundation. Because I know a lot of brothers, I might lose you here, sisters. I might lose you because you say, hey, it's about making money. No, 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 no. It's about spending it too. Let me explain. Let's switch over here real quick. And let's take a look in here. And I want to show you this. This is how you spend your money. Let me tell you straight up. Remember, our foundation is about building black society. Our foundation is about being able to sustain ourselves so that we can make decisions that help ourselves. Wouldn't you like to live in a place where your kids are not at threat from anyone? Because you know your neighbors, you control all the factions. I'm not telling you to run the U.S. I'm telling you to, just like your white counterparts, and run a town. They do it and they're happy. Many of us are living in places where we don't, and we're unhappy, regardless of that spending power and everything else. In order to do that, those big bubbles up here, the big ones, we got to cover the big bubbles. The first one, 33% of our money goes to our house. 33%. 15.9% goes to our transportation. 12% to our food. Now, let me talk about the 33% of your house. It does not just mean your mortgage. It means your house and household goods. That's toilet paper, that's so forth and so on. And you know, what I really like to show all the time is Procter and Gamble's list of brands. Really, because we don't pay attention enough to understand that Procter and Gamble has so many brands that we could probably have a very hard time listing them all on one page. But in here you'll find Old Spice. In here you'll find Pantene, Dawn dish detergent, Salvo. You'll find Crest and Oral-B. You'll find things that you thought competed against each other, but basically this one company, this mega company, right? And we should look at Procter and Gamble. Say Procter and Gamble annual revenue, right? That's wrong. That's just their distributors. Let's see, we have to look at their real returns. There we go. $20.6 billion. So these people are making a tremendous amount of money off of what you spend in this space. So remember, household goods, your house. There's a couple of brothers that we got that are really focused in black businesses on selling things like detergent, toothbrushes, aluminum foil, toilet paper, things like that. And they're down the right path. That's a humongous space of our everyday spend. By the way, that also includes your utilities too. So that's utilities, household goods, and the cost of your house. That's where we spend most of our money. I want to pay attention to something else too, if you don't mind. Let's look over there. Apparel. 3.1%. Swallow it. Apparel, 3.1%. As we go down these numbers, you're going to understand how much sense that makes and don't make. Let's look at the other one, not apparel. Apparel, entertainment, healthcare, food, beverages, health, education, housing, other expenses. Now in here, we have things like perfume, body care. It's also net 3.7%. Some body care products can be classified in household goods, but typically household goods are about the house, not just the person. The reality is when it comes to lotions, body oils, body care, and our clothes, we actually only spend 7% of our income on it. And in that space, I would just hold that. 7% of our income goes to beauty and personal care and clothing. 33% goes to where you live and what you use in your house and keeping that house operating. And then another 12.9% to your food, not eating out. Eating out is up here, 0.9%. Eating in, 12.9%. Okay? So you should understand that. So between the house, just in your house, in the house, not the clothes and everything else, just on the house and eating and living, you spend almost 50% of your money. Okay? Let's go back. Let's go back. I want you to hold on these numbers and hold on to these ideas. They're important. They're important. So when I say that, I want to look at where these black-owned businesses are that are big enough so that at least one person can work there with no problems. At least one. So that's 250 and above. Let's go into it. It's 250, 500, and a million. There you go. That's our number. But I need to isolate some things. Let's think about our goods. So let's take out things like, let's leave utilities, transportation, and warehousing. Transportation, warehousing, by the way, just so you know that, that's the brothers driving trucks. That's the brothers driving trucks and the brothers and sisters that are dispatching those trucks. We're going to pull them out of this number for now, okay? Real estate and rental and leasing, we'll leave them in there. It's okay, even though most of us don't sell to us, but we'll leave it in there. Professional, scientific, technical, that has to do with, all kinds of technical stuff, so forth and so on. So, Scream, what kind of business are you in, by the way? Other services, public administration, we'll take that out. Mining and quarrying, let's leave it in. No, why not? Management and companies, service orientated. Information, industries not classified. Let's just take them all together. Healthcare and social assistance. We're not, it's not saying it's not important. Financial services, okay, and educational services. Let's leave in construction. Let's take out arts and entertainment. Let's leave agriculture. Let's take out administrative and accommodation. Those are like little hotels and Airbnbs. 26,000. And most of the people are making their money in construction, retail, and real estate. 26,000. So we can say we got a lot of brothers out there. That's a misnomer. I'm just randomly saying some stuff. On the U.S. level, 48 million people. 48 million people can go to 9,000 companies in order to do construction. 48 million. And that's making over 250. Let's skew it a little bit more. Let's think about the home, consumer goods. Let's think about the things we wear, the things we buy, not just the house, because the house itself, like I said, it represents like 10%. The things in the house, the food we buy, all of those things are the things that we really consume. We put out, even the guys in the construction industry, put half of their money back out to things in their house, food, and the things that their employees put in their house and the food. So let's take them out. Let's take them out. Construction, real estate. 12,000. I told you the number was going to bother you. When you find out there's only 12,000 companies in all of the United States, 12,000 companies that you can spend half your money with. Only 12,000 companies. So you wonder why it's very hard to buy black. Why it's hard to stick into this. Even if you try it tomorrow. Now underneath this 250, there's tons of people trying. So many, millions of our brothers and sisters are trying underneath the fold. But the ones who are actually succeeding at all, 12,000 in the entire country. Now, agriculture, forestry, fishing, 91 in the whole country. I can write you a list, I wish I could have it, of the 91 companies that are owned by black people that are even making a dent at being able to do it for a living. We don't even need to talk about utilities. There's only 52 of them in the country. Most utilities don't stretch beyond a city. We got 50 states. How many cities do you think there are? Your ability to buy black-owned utilities is not existent. I'm going to take them out of our group just because I want to show you something else. Let's pull the utilities out. I'm going to pull the mining companies out. There's only 60 mining companies. Out of all the things that we buy, there's only 60. 60. And as a matter of fact, you know what? I want to put mining back in there just to show you this number. Mining, okay? And then I want to take it up to the million because, see, mining, you ain't doing nothing if you ain't doing over $1 million. 11 black mining companies of significance in the whole country. In the entire country. 11. Let's add those other ones back in real quick. These are the numbers, y'all. I'm just telling you the numbers. I'm not, making this stuff up. Let's take the mining and quarrying out. Okay. And I'm going to pull out, I'll leave the brothers that are in agriculture. Now, what I'm going to do, because see, $250,000, truth be told, your grocery bill, let's break it down. Your grocery bill, it's got to be at least $100 to $150 a week, unless you live in alone. Okay, unless you live in alone. I got the calculator again. Once again, you can't see it, but let's do 150 multiplied times 52 weeks. $7,800 per person. If I'm making $250,000, I divide it.